What is up, Spa City? Welcome to the Specific Chiropractic Center's podcast, the Spa City Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Dennis, featuring all of the community leaders and people doing big things for the community of Hot Springs. Look forward to seeing you guys on the inside. Spa City, you know what time it is. Another rendition of the Spa City Podcast this week. And on this week's episode, I feature the man with the greatest hair in Hot Springs, Roger Crawford, SunMed, your CBD store. Welcome to the hottest seat in Spa City, Roger.
Yeah, thank you.
So, obviously I'm joking. If you're watching on video, then you know Roger doesn't have hair, but I laughed because when I asked him, if he was going to come on, he was like, of course. He's like, I'll make sure I do my hair. And I was telling him, people say LOL. I literally LOL'd when he sent me that. But, bro, so I know, obviously the theme of this podcast is talking to a lot of people who are doing really good things for the community, who are movers and shakers, influencers, doing things that maybe is not the sexiest or maybe doesn't attract the eye the most. Talk to me first. I know, one of the first ways that we encountered was through the chamber, and you're an ambassador for the chamber. And maybe just give our viewers a little bit about, your background, kind of your history. The first thing I want to know personally is what got you into the, CBD SunMed business? Like how did that incept?
Well, to tell you the truth, if you would have asked me that question 6 years ago, if I'd have known where I was sitting today, I would have thought you were smoking something similar to our line. But no, I was a truck driver for 14 years, drove around 2 million miles, lived out on the road pretty much full time the last 4 years of that run. So as most all truck drivers get addicted to three things, pretty much ibuprofen, ZQuil, and caffeine. You eat horrible food. You're sitting on your butt most of the time. And so I gained a lot of weight, had a lot of pain, developed cervical spondylosis in my neck, some bone spurs and things like that. So my girlfriend at the time had really bad anxiety. I mean, to the point where she couldn't even stand in line at McDonald's if too many people came in at once. She would actually literally run to the truck and say, "You know what I want to eat?" And I was like, "Whoa!" I've never really had anxiety, so I didn't know kind of what that was. I do now that I'm in the industry. But she had tried every pharmaceutical known to mankind, and so with pharmaceuticals, synthetics, things like that, it always comes with side effects. So she was tired of dealing with the side effects of the medication she was on, so she started researching CBD. And in my head, because I was very ignorant of the industry, I just thought it was snake oil. And so, but at the same time, I was willing to venture into it just to see if it would help her. And so we found a store down in Lake City, Florida. It was called Your CBD Store. And at that time, we were traveling from Colorado to Florida every week. So one weekend we would be in Florida, the next weekend we'd be up in Colorado. So we were taking our 36-hour break, and so we went across the street from the hotel to this place called Your CBD Store, and we walked in. The guy was all excited. He had only been in business for just a couple of weeks, and so he was like, "Yo, man, you got to try this." And I'm like, "Listen, I'm a truck driver. I can't have this stuff." I had all of my endorsements. I had no plan B. So I'm like, I can't have THC. And I know the hemp plant has THC in it. And regardless of what this cat says, I'm not going to use any of these products in here, right? I'm only here for her, right? And she's over there taking shots of water solubles and eating gummies and putting cream and just having a great time. And so he was very insistent. He's like, "Man, I think you really should try this. There's got to be something going on with you." And I was like, "Man, you know what? Actually, I've got a shoulder that I haven't been able to move higher than, my neck for 20 years. I blew it out on the bench press when I was around 22, 23. I was like, you know what? Just put some cream on my shoulder." And so he puts the cream on or whatever. And he's like, well, we'll try this. And I thought, well, at this point, I've lost my job anyway. I might as well go ahead and go all in at this point. So I take the water soluble, a gummy or whatnot, and he literally goes, "I'll see y'all tomorrow," and almost pushes us out the door. And I thought, man, that was the worst sales pitch that I've ever heard, right? So we go back to the hotel, and I literally slept like a dead man, woke up like a new man, and I didn't take any ibuprofen that night. I swear I stayed in the same position, and I am a toss and turner kind of sleeper, right? And so I ended up at his front door before he even opened the store, credit card in hand. And I was his first big sale. Like, he was so excited. It was like $560 or something. But I'm like, I got to have some of this for me. I got to have some of this for Amy. I got to have some of this stuff for my mom. And so anyway, literally from that day forth, man, I literally just put the ibuprofen to the side, started using this stuff religiously. Of course, I went and bought a bunch of do-it-at-home drug tests because I literally thought there's no way that they were able to get the THC out of the products. Now that I have, fast forward to today, that was in 2019. I actually remember the date, July 13, 2019, and I'm horrible with dates. I miss my mom's birthday every now and then, but I do remember the day my life changed, and the day my life changed was when I was introduced to SunMed CBD, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. I truly feel like it saved my life. When you look at my pictures from then, I was 230 pounds, alcoholic, ibuprofen, eating my guts up, the ZQuil for sleep, all those things. If you were to see the before pictures, and maybe I can get them to you, and you can see it for what it is.
We'll get those on there.
So now, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I haven't had a sip of alcohol since, January 29th of this year, and I'm actually using my products to do that. So in my eyes, it saved my life. That's why I'm so passionate about it, and I want everybody to know about that there is an alternative to synthetics, in the market. So.
Yeah, I think CBD has been something that I think there's a lot of misunderstood things in healthcare, or just relative to pain. We just, obviously being in the pain industry as well, and majority of people, I just did a segment where I was talking about pain's the great motivator, right? And so sometimes it motivates people to walk through your door, right? But like, let's address maybe the elephant in the room for our viewers. Like, a lot of people, I think there's a big misconception surrounding CBD and around just these products.
Yeah.
What would you say is like one of the biggest misconceptions you run into, or that we could address for the viewers today, that's like just a total cockamamie that they have thrown at you? Because we all know there's forces at play here.
Right.
Anytime you disrupt somebody's cash flow, they get upset about it. They're going to start throwing things out there, doesn't matter what it is. What is maybe one of the bigger ones that on a day-to-day is like the most, or maybe it's a couple things that are like, this is a misconception I run into all the time. I have to navigate for people and tell them the truth.
There is a stigma attached to it. Cannabis has been around for thousands of years. Our bodies have an endocannabinoid system, and the cannabis plant, literally, I tell people it's the puzzle pieces that you've been looking for. We have these thousands of receptors throughout our body, and when you consume quality CBD, it's literally like, and I try to keep the story simple. When we were in elementary school, the teacher gave you a blank piece of paper, gave you the Elmer's glue, gave you some glitter, and then she's like, use your imagination. And you take the glue and you'd make your lines, a house, a gingerbread man, or whatever. And then you'd take the glitter and you'd sprinkle it over that glue. Well, that glue is your receptors, and quality CBD is that glitter. So when that CBD enters your system, it fills those receptors, and you eventually go into maintenance mode. I think the biggest hurdle that we had to overcome, especially opening in Arkansas, was the stigma attached to CBD in relation to marijuana and THC, things like that. I mean, we used to have people when we very first opened our store, and just so the viewers know, hemp is legal federally, and it's because
big difference between hemp and marijuana.
Right, they're in the same family. It's in the cannabis family. Hemp has a high level of cannabidiol, CBD, low levels of THC, and then marijuana is opposite in the fact that it has higher levels of THC, low CBD. So according to the Federal Farm Bill, anything that falls under the threshold of the 0.3% per ounce is considered, and it has to be derived from a hemp plant. So I think the biggest stigma to overcome was it was being attached to, people would call it the devil's lettuce and all these different things. And if we want to go biblical on it, in Genesis 1:29, God told us to use all the seed-bearing plants as food. He didn't say anything about oxycodone or hydrocodone.
I think it's he put the herbs on the earth for humans to consume.
Yeah, and there's several scriptures throughout the Bible where it talks about that. And I truly believe that God gave us a plant for every ailment. I mean, I truly believe that. And I think it's funny how, the American government used cannabis to win World War II. They made ropes and uniforms and all these different things to win World War II. But then all of a sudden in 1937, the tide turned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they introduced us to pharmaceuticals. And when you look at the benefits of the hemp and the marijuana plant, you start understanding why there's so many industries that are scared for these two plants to literally go legal. It's a biofuel.
Yeah.
You don't have to dig up dinosaur guts in the Middle East to run your car anymore if you're growing marijuana and hemp. And for the climate, for the climate people out there screaming, global warming and all these things, plant marijuana and hemp. It filters the air. It filters the soil. There's so many benefits, but there's so many industries that would be affected.
You're disrupting the industry.
Right. Yeah. So, but with SunMed, and the reason we are different is the fact that we're educated. I've got over 17,000 hours of boots on the ground. I now have 3 locations, 2 here in Arkansas. We just opened our newest in Orange Beach, Alabama. And so we've been able to do something that nobody else has done. You can't go to college and spend 4 years and get a degree that will outdo what I've seen. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've seen it. I've watched it happen, and there's no real true studies going on in the industry except with our company. We're actually doing clinical trials. We've done 2 clinical trials actually, and we just completed one. It was a sleep study involving CBN, which is a natural sedative in the hemp plant. So
I can imagine that in your industry, like we were just talking about industry, it's an industry disruptor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that there's been some legislative battles, some legal battles,
mm-hmm.
some people coming at you saying, hey, we need to legislatively figure out a way to knock you out of the marketplace.
Right.
I mean, I know that over the last couple of years, there's been this kind of, legislative battle there, and not to get too political legislative, but we can do that because it's my show. What's been some of the more recent legislative fights? You don't have to name names, but what's that been like?
So it has been interesting. My background is truck driving, so
you're not deep in the Constitution.
Well, system. I used to listen to a lot of talk radio, so I've heard different opinions and things like that. And people think that it's law enforcement, and they think it's government that's attacking the hemp industry, and in fact, that's totally wrong.
Right.
It's actually the marijuana industry that's attacking the hemp industry, and
the dispensaries.
Well, I wouldn't say the dispensaries, because if you want to go, we can go creep into some different areas here, but basically you want to mess up a good thing, get the government involved, right?
Right.
So you look at California, and there's a documentary, I can't remember the name of it, it's on YouTube or whatever, but it talks about how America effed up the marijuana industry. Over taxation, over regulations. People don't go into stores in California to buy weed. They go in the alley. Right. It's cheaper, right? So they've made the black market legit again.
Right.
But
Which
basically
gets pissed when you legalize it.
Yeah, and they've also empowered certain outside of the country organizations, let's just say that have an endless supply of money.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're trying to go into these states, and they're trying to change state constitutions. We just had this happen in Arkansas with Amendment 4. Everybody thought it was a rec bill.
To make marijuana recreational.
Right. That everybody thought it was a recreational bill. Actually, it wasn't.
It's one of those bills that that's the Trojan horse they brought it in under.
Yep.
And then when it gets through, then you get the fine print. And
it was actually Amy and I that were down in Florida for our conference. We didn't think anything was wrong with the bill at all. And so, but it was written by a marijuana lawyer. And what they're trying to achieve is they want control over the entire industry.
Engulf CBD into the industry.
And put us out of business, right. And then they control it. The problem with that is there's not much education in the marijuana industry. So you're not getting that one-on-one experience with somebody. They're just throwing different strains at you. Then they're throwing marijuana at everything. So you take Amendment 4 into consideration. That would have changed our state constitution, which was good luck changing that. And so if marijuana was to go legal federally, and these states have changed their state constitution, then there's a whole new battle to fight to try to become part of that federal, legalization of marijuana because they've already put their tentacles in there. The best thing to do at this point in the cannabis industry is to make it both plants legal.
Yeah.
Think about it from
open the marketplace for both of them and let the people decide.
Yeah, I don't have time to grow weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If grandma wants to grow it for her glaucoma, let her do it.
Yeah.
Somebody like me, I'm going to run into 7-Eleven and grab me a Marlboro 10,000. And I want people to know this. I'm a fan of both plants, but I think there needs to be more education. You take doctors here in town, they're prescribing medical marijuana.
Right.
With what experience?
Yeah.
Where's the degree on the wall? You went to school for 8 to 10 years in modern medicine.
Well, let's be honest, too. The reason they're doing that is because people are coming in saying, hey, Doc, I can't sleep. I can't eat. They know the buzz terms, right? Yeah. That's what's happening. They're going in. They know exactly when they go in there.
Yep.
This is what I need.
Yep.
And they're prescribing it. That's what they're prescribing it off. Correct?
And the problem with that is the doctors don't know or don't realize that they're actually doing more damage to that person because, for instance, my mom has been told by her doctor twice that she needs medical marijuana. If my mom was to use medical marijuana, she would end up in Levi Hospital in psychosis because her receptors could not handle that high level of THC. You have to have high levels of cannabidiol in order to get a holistic medicine. So when you're giving somebody that's never smoked a joint, never ate an edible, never ever tried marijuana or hemp, and you give them a product that contains 30% THC, you're overloading those CB1 receptors and you're putting them into psychosis. And the reason I know this is because the people that leave Levi Hospital or whatever other mental hospital they go to, they come into our store to try to figure out why it happened.
Yeah, this is super fascinating. So, so what you're saying is is there a way to look at somebody's receptors and know whether or not which plant they need based on their presentation?
What we've seen is when we ask a lot of questions, when we come in or when the potential customer comes in, we want to find out, do you have the body parts to process certain products in our store? Also, if you're dealing with any types of anxiety, do you have a racy mind? If you can't sleep, why can't you sleep? And our industry is really saturated with a lot of bad players. I was just watching a hearing, and we'll get back to the legislation part in a minute. We're going to circle back. And this actually relates to it because Delta-8 THC is a huge controversial issue across the country right now. And so I was watching this hearing in Washington, and it was the FDA, and it was involved with THC. You have hometown heroes there, different experts speaking. But the testimony from the FDA is this: 86% of the CBD companies in this country are bogus, meaning only 14% are legitimate, meaning they actually contain inside the container what is advertised on the label. The reason being is the federal farm bill is wide open. It's full of loopholes. So now you have all these synthetic.
As far as what you can put in there, what you say you put in there, it's not FDA, in other words, regulated, right? So
right. No, they just turned their back on it. And, a couple of things happened. We had the pandemic.
Then it opens the ability for them to just, like you said, put whatever they want on the label, and it
right.
may or may not be on there.
Right. Yeah.
No one's saying, "Hey, that's not on there."
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So basically, you can go out right now and start your own CBD company in the parking lot. Find you a few.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. Also for our viewers out there, if they're like, "Hey, I go into a gas station and I look up on the," and I'm not knocking gas stations selling I'm not here to do that, but it's if I look up and I see and the advertising's interesting, the names of stuff. They advertise it as if it's weed or marijuana.
Yes.
And so for viewers, when they look at if, let's say I'm someone I'm interested in CBD, I've got anxiety, I've got something I want to get fixed, and I want something non-pharmaceutical, more holistic. How do they, what's the difference between SunMed, your CBD store products, and the stuff that they're going to find, maybe the bad guys that are doing these types of tactics via advertising? How do they, what are the differences, and how do they know to pick up on that? How would one know?
Right. Well, the only life-changing decision you should be making at a gas station right now is how many gallons of gas you're putting in your vehicle, right? It's expensive, right?
Right.
You shouldn't be buying CBD at gas stations. I'm not afraid to say that, and the reason I'm not afraid to say that is because gas station CBD is synthetic. For the most part, most of it is just synthetic. Just so your viewers know, the FDA requires QR codes on any packaging that contains hemp CBD. That's supposed to lead you to lab reports that you can actually see if there's metals, toxins, fentanyl, where it's derived from. We do 7-page panels. So we're ranked number 1 worldwide for CBD brick and mortar franchise. We're a USDA certified organic company. We're a soil to oil company. And this is how we truly separated ourselves from the crowd is we plant the seed, we harvest, we extract, we formulate. We're third party tested 3 times before it ever makes it into your hands. And we do the final testing at our facilities in Florida.
So just as a perspective, the stuff, let's say I bought at Exxon.
Right.
That stuff was made from like in a lab, right? Like essentially.
Essentially, it could have been, or it could have been they found some cheap CBD extract from Kentucky. They bought it at a very low price. In fact, that company probably even white labeled it for them and put whatever they wanted on that bottle. So the only person that's making a profit is the person that's selling it. The problem is those synthetics that are being sold in gas stations. Delta 10 is one of the worst. I mean, we do have some legislation coming down the pipeline that should eliminate all the bad players in the industry, and we're being instrumental in that. Everything that we carry is FDA compliant, so we're setting the stage of what's going to be expected in the future. That being said, these companies that are doing this and cheating the system and things like that, they're not going to be able to do that anymore when we start labeling and making these synthetic THCs absolutely illegal. And that's what we want. And the reason is because as of right now, marijuana and hemp, true marijuana and hemp derived products have killed 0 people. Nobody's died. The only way you'll die from marijuana or hemp is if you're standing next to a semi-trailer and it rolls over and a bale of hemp rolls over your body and crushes you. That's the only way you're going to die from it, right?
Right.
But when you get man-made synthetics involved, there is, and I know people have died. In fact, some of the legislation that's being put into place, they're saying it's Delta 8, and this just happened in Arkansas last year, and Amy and I were instrumental in fighting that bill. They were blaming synthetic, cannabis products on Delta 8, and 99% of the Delta 8 in the market is synthetic.
And just for maybe our viewers who don't know, Delta 8, and so when traditionally people think of THC in marijuana that gets people high, that's Delta 10.
Delta 9.
And that's Delta 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then Delta 8, they just remove one of the, I took organic chem, but it was many years ago. They remove like one thing, which makes it Delta 8.
Right.
It's the component that gives you the hallucinogenic euphoric high.
Yeah. So a true Delta 8 extract, and this is what we've learned because ours is a true Delta 8 extract. We do no synthetics within our company, and that's why that's why I'm so proud to be a part of this company, is our Delta 8 is actually derived from the hemp plant. What we've seen is Delta 8 in people who do have high anxiety tend to do better with Delta 8. It's more of a body experience. It tends to quiet the neural receptors in the brain. Whereas Delta 9, and this goes back to my mom, if she was to ever get a medical marijuana card and smoke marijuana, 9 would actually, it literally is like filling up a fire truck full of gasoline, responding to a house fire, spraying it, hoping it goes out. And it's putting people into psychosis. It's sending them overboard. Whereas with the Delta 8, a true Delta 8, and I think this is truly why the marijuana industry has such a big issue with Delta 8 is because when you use a true Delta 8, you don't go into the dispensary anymore. You actually
enjoy it more.
You actually get that medicine that you need without that fully intoxication. Not everybody wants to get intoxicated. I hear it all the time. I use the real stuff. Do you?
Yeah. Well, do you think it's fair to say then, and this is an opinionated statement, in your opinion, do you think marijuana in its truest sense is helping contribute to this mental health type of problem we're seeing?
Man, I hate to say it, but I do believe so. There's just not enough education.
It's an opinion, right?
Yeah, it's an opinion. I mean, I truly believe, and the reason being is because I'm in my store. I'm an active store owner. I just don't own stores. I'm in my stores all the time, and at least 1 or 2 people that come through our door every day have tried marijuana, the medical marijuana. Back in our day, we grew up with less than 10% THC. back in our day, you could smoke a joint and go put a roof on a house. You know what I mean?
It's just low, yeah.
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 And now, I mean, my son's from Colorado. I mean, he's a professional, right?
Yeah.
And
You're talking about the potency.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about now. And that's the thing is they're trying to out THC each other. And in our industry,
the marijuana industry.
the marijuana industry,
Yeah.
less is more
Yeah.
in our industry. It truly is. Not everybody wants to get intoxicated. A lot of people want a therapeutic medicine, and when you're getting that high of level of THC on your receptors, it overwhelms them.
Yeah.
And I won't dive too deep into it, but literally, when you go to a nightclub and you pull up, there's always that big dude out front, right? All muscles.
Yeah.
He's there for one reason. He's there for that intoxicated asshole that's going to show up and disrupt the party, right?
Right.
Okay, so the bouncer at the bar is cannabidiol. It's CBD. That drunken asshole is Delta-9 THC.
That's a
So
good analogy.
CBD actually controls that intoxication.
Yeah.
So if you're using something with higher levels of cannabidiol and lower levels of THC, you can go about your day and function, but at the same time get that relief that you're looking for.
So in a perfect world, what do you see as? I mean, the future vision of CBD, right? The future of SunMed. Like in the perfect world, what do you see? From your perspective, being a best case scenario for people to be able to access CBD, to be able to. Obviously, right now they can just walk in your store and
Right.
they can purchase that, which I don't think a lot of people know either. Is the differences in the two, right? Which you've clearly laid out. But what is is this something that can replace a lot of these? Because look, there's people every day operating machinery, flying planes, on pharmaceuticals,
Right? Yeah.
And rightly so in some cases. But in your view, can CBD replace some of these things? Can it? How does that happen? How does it disrupt the industry enough to do that?
So, once again, boots on the ground, been involved in it for, going on 4 years now. I'll have somebody come in, Thomas Masters, war vet. I asked him to come in my shop for a free cup of coffee. He came in on 13 medications through the VA.
Mm-hmm.
He fought for our country. My dad, Special Forces, fought in Nam. 13 medications for him too. He had tackle boxes of this stuff. And so each one of those come with side effects, and usually the side effects need another medication. We've been able to taper both of them down to only 2 medications. So, and I leave it upon them. I'd never tell anybody in fact, I'm one of the only CBD companies in town that I know of that insist on each customer consulting with their physician, because now what happened is 4 years later, I have physicians sending people to me. In the beginning, it used to be it was the last ditch effort. We've thrown everything at it. Now I've got doctors that literally will write down and then send people to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I do believe so. And there's not enough. There's too much ignorance on both sides. So THC is fat soluble. The threshold of the 0.3% per ounce is not intoxicating, yet it clings to your fat cells. When I came off the road, I hadn't had THC in over 14 years. I took my job very seriously. As a truck driver, if you have THC in your system, you have an accident, somebody dies, you're going to prison for a long time.
Yeah.
So I took my job seriously, and that's the cool part about this company is we actually have a true broad spectrum. 4 years later, man, 20% of my customer base is first responders, firefighters, active military, inactive people that are in pain management and things like that. So, but the thing is that 0.3%, I wanted to know. So when I came off the road, I started using our full spectrum product. Our full spectrum has that 0.3%. You can take the whole bottle, you're not going to high, but it's still going to show up. I drug tested myself every night. And on the 3rd night, I was borderline. On the 4th night, I failed my drug test. The reason why this is so important is because when there's no control over the industry and there's no true regulations, you have companies, and there are some companies in this town that advertise no THC on their products, but there's nanoparticles. So you take, for instance, truck driver goes into a shop, talks to who he thinks is a CBD expert behind the counter. The bottle says no THC. This truck driver buys it. He starts using it. It, in fact, has nanoparticles of THC in it, and because it fell under their threshold, they went ahead and labeled it, right?
Yeah, and he's going to pop a drug test.
So he goes through the green light, got his cam on. All his hours are legit. He's legal to be driving. Little old lady runs the red light, goes underneath his tractor trailer. He kills her. That's an automatic drug test. They're going to test your blood. They're going to test your urine.
Unbeknownst to him, he's got,
and he doesn't even know
right.
he's driving hot. And that THC shows up, he's going to prison for a very long time. So this industry needs a smackdown.
Needs a smackdown.
It does, really. But
super interesting.
Would I rather a truck driver be driving with traces of THC in his system? Yes, I would. In comparison to getting drunk the night before?
No, absolutely.
Or taking
you hear that cliche all the time. I can handle a stoner way more than I can a drunk.
Oh, police will tell you that all day long.
All day long. And look, I mean, it's segueing just a little bit as we close up here. Like, I know you're from Hot Springs. I know you and your wife now are both from here.
Right.
I always like to let our viewers in on a little bit about, some of the things you love the most about the city. One of the things I talk about is, being a tourist in our own hometown. It's super fun. Now that you're traveling back and forth to Orange Beach and true vacation tourist place and then back to Hot Springs, what's truly to you like one of your favorite things about this city?
Oh man, there's so many things. I truly love this city. I've pretty much been here, all my life. I love the fact that you can get up and go, hunting. And 4 hours later, you're at the horse races. You know what I mean?
Right. Or on the lake.
And the food here. Oh, the lakes here are beautiful, man. I grew up near Lake Ouachita, out, just south of Mount Ida there in Norman, town of 392 people, right? And I'm very blessed to, when you're at that age and you're living in that type of environment, you're like, I want to get to the big city. I was a skater and I played guitar and I want to be in a band and all these things. And I actually moved up to Denver. But when I got there, I started realizing I grew up in paradise, man. Arkansas as a whole is just, man, I truly believe if you don't believe in God, come to Arkansas and go see the Winding Staircase and the Missouri Falls and Lake Ouachita and just the people, man. The people in this town, the small businesses in this town. It's just down in Orange Beach when I'm doing presentations and I start talking about this town, they think it's some fairyland. Like, that's how much I love Hot Springs. So when they hear me talk about it, they hear the passion, my love for it, and now they're wanting to come here. So
I love that, man. Well, dude, I super appreciate all you guys are doing for the community, and thanks for coming on today, man.
Right on, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's gonna wrap it up for us this week, folks. And look, you are no longer uninformed when it comes to the CBD cannabis industry. You know how to spot a bad one versus a good one, some of the side effects, some of the really good effects that are available there. And as always, looking for more holistic options, check out your CBD store, SunMed. Tell them Dr. Grant sent you over at Roger Crawford. Hey, listen, until next week, be sure and get out there and support our community. Make sure that anybody you see on this podcast, you go and support their local businesses. Make sure we keep Spa City and the Hot Springs area unique like we know that it is, and a place that we can call home. And until next week, as always, see ya. Thanks for joining us this week, guys, on another episode of the Spa City Podcast. And remember to subscribe to everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and check us out on social media. And remember to support all of our community members we have on this podcast and everybody who's doing big things in the community of Hot Springs. And until next time, see ya.